my dad first allowed me to be, and I'll put air quotes in the air, an assistant manager at 16 years old, 17 years old, we'll call it. It was like a junior in high school. I had zero business doing that. But it was, looking back, it's all about raising baby birds, right? It's all about, no, you have to take ownership of this and you better grow up quick because like we need you. And that particular year, we had this gentleman named Jason Mesta who had worked under my dad for years and years. And he had moved with his family up to Colorado, but I'm not sure what the circumstances were, but he was unemployed for a period of time. And so my dad convinced Jason to come down and manage the store, and somehow convinced him that me being his assistant manager would be a good idea. So Jason moves down from Colorado, lives with us in my house and in my brother's bedroom. Again, my brother had left for college, and he's living at the house with me. And I'm going to school during the day and then showing up after school and working nights and weekends as his air quote assistant manager. And what it really amounted to was Jason was managing the store open to close, and 7 days a week. And at some point, desperation, as you've been through this grind, it's completely inconceivable to work open to close 7 days a week for an entire Halloween season. Nobody is built for that. This is like the grind of all grinds. So he had to acquiesce to allowing me to run the store, but for short periods, but just so he could get some sort of time to rejuvenate and recharge his system. Every single time he would leave me in charge, catastrophic failures.
Oh, no.
I'm not kidding either. And I can't imagine now looking back, and I need to talk to Jason about this because I would love to get his perspective on all this. I can't imagine how stressful that was for him, but also, I can't imagine how mad he was at my dad. And I have this vision ingrained in, I have this memory ingrained in me. And, well, it's really two. The first one was Jason's dad lived in El Paso, and he drove to Albuquerque to go eat dinner with him. And so Jason's like, all right, I'm going to go eat dinner with my dad. You're in charge. Basically, just don't let the place burn down, I got this, I was so full of myself.
Right.
It's no problem, And by the time he came back, so during that time, Spirit has always had its protocol on exactly how these stores are supposed to operate. And you have a certain vibe that's supposed to exist in these stores. And at that time, it was these CDs called Midnight Syndicate. That was the only soundtrack that could play in the store. And it was they were actually wonderful soundtracks. But I decided, 17-year-old TK decided nah, I'm so sick of hearing these Midnight Syndicate jams. We're turning on Kiss 97.3, the most hip hop and R&B in this thing. And so I decided I was going to jam out Kiss 97.3, the most hip hop and R&B at level 11. And he comes in, and I remember the look on his face of just disbelief that I turned Spirit Halloween into Club Spirit, and also I really was turning off the customers. They were coming in and it was hip hop, and they came in to a Halloween store. That's not what the expectation of the customer was. And looking back on that now, I totally get it, of course.
Definitely.
But he was so upset at me at that moment. The next time was this was an old home base. So home base is way before your time, but it was before Home Depot existed, home base, but same size warehouse, home improvement store type of a deal. We were using 10,000 square foot of a 100,000 square foot building. And I was just club mess around all the time. And so I was like, well, there's this great big area to drift cars back there. So I I invite my buddies over and we bring our cars in there. And we're just absolutely doing donuts.
While the store's open?
This is after hours, but like, you know, still being idiots. And this is as like camcorders were just getting big. And so we wanted to film everything. And like, this is also when like Jackass was big. And so it was like all of a sudden cool to just do idiotic, stupid things. And so we were just in there being complete, absolute idiots in there. And recording ourselves doing it, like totally incriminating ourselves. So it was like, it was after work one night and Noel comes over and we're so excited to watch the footage we had created. And we're in there and it's like screeching tires and just us being complete idiots. And Jason comes in and he's like, what are you watching here?
Because he's in the bedroom right next door.
Yeah. And it's just us like being so immature and idiotic in the store. And he's like, you know, like this is the type of stuff that can make your family lose everything that they've worked for.
Wow.
And I looked at him and was like, well, what do you mean? Like, of course, I never thought it at that level. And he's like, you have a responsibility, not only to yourself, but like to your entire family. Like, what if somebody hit that pole or like, what if somebody got ran over? Like, you get sued, you lose everything. And like, I mean, everything, your house and everything. And that was one of these like pivotal moments where I'm like, this is why my dad put me in this position, to make these mistakes, to feel exactly how I feel now, to learn that lesson so I never do this crap again. And so to tie it all back, like I give my parents tremendous amount of credit for giving someone who shouldn't have been in that position that kind of leadership and responsibility, knowing that I was going to fail, knowing I was going to disappoint them, knowing that I could jeopardize their ability to make a living in perpetuity.
Right.
But wanting that growth experience for me and wanting that from my brother and from my sister. And that brings me to you, honestly. Like, if we can rewind this track back a little bit, and now I'll kind of turn the tables a bit to you. Spirit Halloween was your first job, if I can remember right, or if not your first job, but maybe your first real job.
Yeah.
And I remember you and Gids coming in, and you were these rocker. We called you the rocker twins, right? Like you had this. Yep. This is when you pull up picture of Jesse and Gids
I got a bunch.
with their rocker hair, and you guys were these right. You're the generation younger than me, so you're kind of this anomaly at this time where I don't really understand what motivates you guys or really how to communicate with that generation yet. But you guys were like, you just had a drive a bit different than anybody else that we hired that year. And I remember the manager that year was a friend of mine, Kim Amlung. And she just loved you. Like every time that I called for an update about how are things going in the store, it was constant praise about the rocker twins. And so I think at that time you're maybe 16, 15?
15 turning 16 my first year. And then that year under Kim, 16 turning 17.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So that was your second year that you worked under Kim.
Yeah.
So then it came, and now this is our busiest store in Albuquerque, which is actually one of the busier stores in the whole country at this time. And Kim was a phenomenal manager. And she had, the year prior was kind of a disaster. Like she had to fire her assistant managers, like as Halloween business kind of goes, right? There's always the reaper around the tree looking and causing mischief. And so anyway, she was coming into the next year where she was going to be managing the store. And she put the little birdie, I was like, who are you thinking about for your assistant manager? And she's like, I'm going to tell you, but you're going to think I'm crazy. And she said, I want to hire Jesse. I said, well, Jesse, he's 17 years old. And I'm replaying the vivid memories I have of 17-year-old CK managing a quote, air quote, being an assistant manager of the home base store. And I'm like, I have to talk her out of this. Like this is a bad idea. So I literally told her all the stories about my experience being a 17-year-old manager. And I tried to talk her out of it. And every time I tried to give her a reason why you shouldn't, she would hit me with a reason why you should. And I said, you know what? Like, this is exactly what my parents did for me, and you deserve this opportunity. And so I said, come hell or high water, like, let's do it. And it turns out you never made all those mistakes that I did. You just are a way better person than me. Your parents did a great job.
I definitely made my fair share.
You've made mistakes, but you've never been an idiot like I was. And to this day, like, it blows my mind, the origin story of you. And then now where we are now, fast forward, what is it, 10 years?
12.
12 years.
Yeah.
12 years we're sitting here, and you're basically the leader of the free world Halloween edition in New Mexico. And I'm so glad that you had that opportunity. And I'm also so thankful that you've had this same conduit of growth as a human being that I had, because I know how beautiful that was and how important that was to my development as a human being. And at any rate, I think it's a completely non-traditional, you tell people you do Halloween stores, are like,
yeah. There's no way to put it into words.
They're like, oh, it's like a fireworks stand. Like
Yeah.
that, I mean, doesn't seem that hard. I'm speechless right now because, like, truly Halloween is the most amazing business of all time, just because so many times, right? Like, you work in a business and you only work in one part of that life cycle. Like, you either help start it or you work while it's open, and maybe you help shut a retailer down. But you've never seen something, you've never went into an empty store, built an absolute beautiful store, hired everybody from the ground up, built a team, like, and not only built a team, but you've built a, and this is where my brain injury is coming in, because I'm like having hard time accessing the vocabulary that I want. Building not just the team, but also building the vibe, the culture of a store, brand new, and then selling all this stuff, creating experience, and then having to pack it all up and turn it back in the same shape that you got it from to a landlord. And it's like the Harvard graduate crash course MBA, and nobody can prepare you for that. And every season, you get to recreate it, and you get to dissect what you did bad, what you do better, and you get to do it all over again. And then, so it's this scientific method of business that no other retailer gets. Okay, let's do some stuff, see if it works. Let's throw some mud at the wall, see if it sticks. Oh, that worked. Let's keep that. That wasn't a good idea. Let's get rid of that. And the evolution, that's allowed this evolution of Halloween to be this amazing thing. And anyway, it's a pleasure to get to see you now learning and understanding all the things that I got to learn.
Yeah, dude. Spirit at that time, it actually changed my life. I mean, I was coming from this, God, I had social anxiety at a level that was just ridiculous. And I didn't see how that was ever going to change for me. You know, I mean, like, we're talking at the level where we're at McDonald's as a family and my mom's like, go get ketchup from the counter. And that was scary. I didn't want to go ask for ketchup as a 14-year-old, you know, like it was crippling social anxiety. And I had a very similar experience to my dad's in high school, where I was at a college prep school. You know, everyone's wearing Hollister and Aeropostale, and I'm the kid who shops at Hot Topic. I'm the oddball there, and so there wasn't a ton of confidence. And my first job was just a couple months before Spirit. It was at Red Brick Pizza, and that was my first time having a manager at work. And the dude sucked. He was sadistic. I mean, like, he enjoyed being mean to us, and everyone knew it. And so that was just another thing to be anxious about all day at school, was going to work afterwards, you know. But if I wanted to be able to put gas in the car and go hang out with my 2 friends after school, I had to pay my way. So, so the blessing, I mean, this is one of those things you can look back on your life and you can see the thread of God's hand and how he's guided you, And
yes.
So I show up one day in September after school, no calls, no text from my manager. And there's just a paper on the door saying that Red Brick Pizza has been evicted. Like, that's it. The door's locked, no heads up, nothing.
Wow.
And so we ended up getting paid like a week later. We had to turn our uniforms into the manager and stuff. But my mom was friends with Angelica at the time, more of a friend, but she strong-armed me into going to apply over there. And I was terrified. I did not want to apply at Spirit. It was just this at Red Brick. I could push past the anxiety because I could make the pizzas, I could do the dishes and not have to interact. But now I'm in this huge store and I had these memories from when I was a kid of, by the way, the playlist's always been a thing in Spirit. Like they always send the music, or did you guys at one point get to choose the music?
So since you've been there, playlists have been a thing.
Okay.
But that was all really, it was such a loose organization under the Joe Marber days. It wasn't until Spencer's Gifts came and acquired Spirit Halloween that all of these kind of like systems, processes, and like they really tried to make a homogenous look and feel of stores nationwide. Before that, it was like, no, it's just like, try to sell this Halloween stuff however you can and don't suck.
Okay.
And so anyway, yeah.
Yeah, so that makes sense because when I was a kid, I had very few memories of Spirit Halloween, but the memories I had, we were walking into the West Side store and I don't remember where that was. I mean, we're talking like, I was 7 maybe. I had memories of just like heavy metal playing when I would walk into the store, like scary for a kid.
Yep.
And so it was just this intimidating thing. Another job interview I had to go through. So I show up, I sit on a box of costumes in the back at Cutler with Angelica, and it's a real easy job interview. It wasn't as bad as I thought. And I started the next day. And, that was me learning customer service and work ethic that season. But fast forward to what you were just talking about when Kim was recognizing, I don't know that she was recognizing leadership yet, but I know she was recognizing a hard worker. Like I was proactive at that time. I did things that she didn't ask me to do just because I thought they would look better or make something easier on the team. So she gives me that shot and I don't know what it was. I started coming out of my shell, And another thing that happened at that time was my very first time stepping on stage to play guitar, like in some sort of like a rock unit. And my whole grade, parents and stuff showed up to this thing. And that was another pivotal night in Jesse's life as far as confidence, and just as corny as it sounds, believing in myself, like I'm capable of more than I thought I was. So being given that opportunity, stepping on stage for the first time was the turning point. And Spirit gave me something that I like had ownership over for the first time. And so I remember, at Cutler, those 2 years as assistant manager, there was plenty of times where I was there until midnight, all the way up to like 4 or 5 in the morning, sometimes off the clock just to get the job done, And of course there's that voice in the back of your head saying like, this could also like be recognized and could lead to other opportunities. And it did that paid off. But Spirit, the opportunities I've gotten from it, from you and your family, really have shaped so much of what my life is today. And my life is awesome. I love my life. So I owe you guys a huge debt of gratitude.
Mutual. I can't tell you what a blessing you've been to not only myself, but our entire family. And I don't want to turn this into
you want to hold hands?
Yeah. But you're an exceptional person and Angelica Pinzon, for all of the shortfallings that happened that season with her, like you're like the absolute gold nugget that fell out of that season and the blessing from the heavens that we needed exactly when we needed it. Because as it's one of those things that God puts these things in your path and you don't even know that he's planting a seed for so much bigger things. And at that time, I could have never anticipated that our relationship and everything would grow to where it is now. but I'm so thankful it is. And, you know, we've had so many conversations where you know, I think in some ways you look to me as a big brother, and like you have high, I don't know, you have high thoughts about who I am. And I can't tell you,
Definitely, yeah.
The same is true for you. The amount of respect that I have for you and the way that you live your life and your morals, your values, and just everything that makes up the fabric of who you are, that makes you truly exceptional. Like, I try to draw those qualities from you and add them to my toolbox. So just me being in your presence adds so much value to me. And also the fact that, I mean, you have very broad shoulders, even contrary to the fact that you're not a big man, but the amount that you can take on, and the things that you're capable of is so much more. I think I tell you this all the time. You are way better at this than I ever was. And I mean that with all sincerity, because the way that you build rapport with people, the amount of tasks that you're able to accomplish with just, it seems like great ease. I always feel like I had to scratch and claw at things that seem so easy and come so naturally to you. And so anyway, I marvel at you, and I'm so thankful to have you on our team, because I think you really, like, you have elevated us. I know you've elevated us, our whole family, to a level that we couldn't have had unless you came into our orbit at 15, 16 years old. So
that's amazing, dude. That's the way that I looked at you. And so 2012 was your first year being like the DM, the guy who drove around, right?
I have no idea what year that was.
I'm pretty certain it was, which was my first year working. And so I have all of these early impressions of CK. You know, you'd show up around closing time, and you'd split up the store into like 4 quadrants between the last 4 of us there closing, and you'd have us make sure that every costume was in its place, nothing backwards, nothing on the floor. Our sections were swept, and whoever had the most perfect section at the end, you would just give like a stack of cash. You know, and you'd come in, you'd be this loud, enthusiastic guy, and you know, so I'm 16. You're how old in 2012?
I'm 36 now, and it's 2023.
Like 25.
I'm 25.
Yeah. So at that point, I'm looking at you, and this is after interacting with you a few times. This guy who just embodies a lot of awesome qualities. I don't know why anyone wouldn't want to aim for, and someone who just like has their life together. You know, I think at the time you were still going for your master's degree. And so I looked up to you, and it's crazy to think now that back then you were younger than I am now, because I still feel like a child, you know. And it is crazy the things that we've taken on, but this idea you have that I'm doing it better. I can't see it from my perspective, and maybe I'm the one person who can't see that, because the person who was my role model is the person that's telling me that.
Amazing.
But it means a lot to hear that. So thank you. And it's a good segue into question 3, an hour.
I want to clarify something here, because if my parents listen to this podcast, I don't want them to think that I was handing out stacks of their cash.
It was like $20.
Yeah, it was like 1s and 5s.
It was 20 and 1s, and you would do the stripper shuffle.
So I had to make a big show on it. But I remember, like, I was struggling with this. How do you inspire people to do a rather uninspiring thing, which is basically reset the store? You've had a very, very busy day. The store's been destroyed. Nothing is in its place correctly, but you want it, like, the way you end the day is the way you start the next day. And I always want to start the next day with a perfect store. But I struggled with how to motivate people to meet my expectations of what a perfectly restocked and restored store is. And so I remember coming up with that game. I should do that again. In fact, you should do that.
I do. I did.
That was great. So I would say basically, like, you're going to start off with $80, which $80 sounds like a lot of money. Well, I know in my mind, like, I'm going to find a bunch of stuff that's wrong. But if I can give them 4 things that are right, so I'm like, I'm gonna take $5 off for everything that I find that's out of place or not repackaged right. Like, the costume isn't folded around the cardboard correctly, or you've got multiple SKUs on a single peg, any one of those that I find, I'm taking $5 off that 80. And in my mind, I know I want to give you $20. So I'm only going to find, like, I was budgeting my mind, I want to give away $100, right? So I'm budgeting in my mind how many things I'm going to find wrong in your section to allow you to get to what my goal is of paying you. And so I would like make this big thing. I was like, all right, like you tell me when you're ready, when your section is perfect, you tell me, and then I'll check you out. Yeah. And I would start with that $80, and every time something was wrong, I'd take $5 and I'd put it in my pocket. And I remember, I think I paid you $80 one night because your attention to detail was ridiculous.
I could thank Aiden Sandoval for that, dude. Because he used to tell me that, well, he'd have us check our sections, and then when they were done, we could go. And I remember the very first time I totally half-assed it, and he came through with a shopping cart and filled it with stuff that was wrong. And like that one experience made Gids and I like the best recoverers was the word that we used back then.
Yeah, I came in, I was like, I'm gonna give away $100 tonight. I remember I was like, I have to give Jesse all $80 because he didn't like miss anything. I couldn't find one thing wrong in your whole section. And if I can recall this correctly, I gave you the hardest section, which of course is makeup, wigs, weapons,
masks.
and masks. And like there's 1,000 SKUs in that quadrant of the store. I couldn't want one thing out of place. And I'm like, this guy's bad to the bone. This guy's special.
That's hilarious.